Welcome. My name is Juan Moss. I am one of the members of the Spokane Film Project, and this is part of our series of educational panels that we try to do to bring information to everyone in our community and hopefully educate them on things that they weren't aware of or remind them of things that they have forgotten. And at this time right now, this panel is going to be talking about safety on set from all different avenues, and also as well as from how the departments overlap and work with each other. And on my panel, I will have them introduce themselves just briefly. If you wouldn't mind giving me an intro, the department or position that you work for briefly, and how you got to where you are in your career. And I'll start with our guest from across the states in Chicago, Ace.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ace Cabral. I'm a first assistant director in Chicago. And I guess how I got to where I am today, worked my way up through the independent film world, and then was just blessed to be on the right show at the right time. And now I'm a very proud member of the Directors Guild and working my way through climbing from films and TV shows to, keep climbing.
Great. Thanks, Ace. Thank you so much for taking the time to being with us. I know it's an hour difference, but I appreciate it.
Thanks.
And now we'll go south to LA area right now. Masa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Masa, stunt performer, stunt coordinator. How I start doing stunts, I start from back in Iran 15 years ago. Then it just happened accidentally by watching a talk show. It was a stunt man talking. So I became a stunt woman back in my country as the only one by the time. And about 6 years ago, I moved to United States. And this last year, I'm only doing coordinating jobs, stunt coordinating.
Great, thank you. Since the west side went dark, I don't know what happened to Drago there. We'll go to our local. Oh, now you're back. We're going to the local. Blake.
I am Blake Nelson. I am a prop master, and I started on Z Nation. And it's just been all downhill from there.
All right, and to the west side in Seattle.
Hey everybody, Drago, stunt coordinator, stunt performer for the last 20 years. Also did special effects coordinating on Z Nation and several other films in and around the States.
Cool. All right. So we're going to go back around. Drago, we'll share with you. People assume they understand what the roles are, but explain a little bit what your role is as a special effects coordinator in ensuring safety on the set.
Usually it starts with obviously the pre-production, production meetings, talking with the director, the ADs, and all the department heads, making sure that everybody has a clear, obvious situation of what's going to happen or what could happen, and talking that all through, all safety protocols with the ADs and assistants, and then implementing those on set.
Nice. Blake, what about you?
Well, I go through and address because props are just anything anyone's using. So, I mean, the obvious one would be weaponry like guns, knives, swords. And is there anything else that might be potentially dangerous that you don't think of as being so? I discuss with the ADs, discuss with the director, like who's doing what with what, how do we make that safe? Like rubbers, etc. What do we need? Oh, that one, the stunts. I talk with stunts a lot because generally that's a stunt. Like when you're hitting somebody with something, we work out how to make that safe.
What about simple stuff like let's just say I'm having an anxiety attack and I'm dropping a plate,
that would also fall under the things you don't always think of as being an obvious safety concern. There's breakaway items that have to be ordered and tested, and hopefully tested if there's enough, is to just work out like how close can you be to this thing when it shatters? What's it going to do? How's it going to react? What are the shards like? We had on one earlier this year, a woman had a glass, like a juice glass, and she had to bring it down hard enough to smash it. But since I didn't have any money, we only had like 4 of the things. And so it was her asking me, well, what's this going to do when I hit it? It's like, it's going to smash. We're not really sure what it's going to do. It's a kind of brittle resin, so it's not going to make sharp bits. I was just more worried about her hand hitting the counter, but it took a couple tries and she hit it, it smashed, and it worked out great.
So that's like a, what do they call that? Candy glass, right?
Candy glass, yeah. It's
glass.
most
No,
of them
it's
now. It's they used to use an actual kind of like actual like a candied material that was, I forget what it was made out of, but most of them now it's a type of brittle resin that they use to make this stuff.
It's like, it used to be like a sugar thing. That's where the name.
Yeah, it used to be, yeah, like if you had a glass of water, you couldn't leave the water in it for too long because it would dissolve and then the thing would just melt. But nowadays you don't have to do that anymore because it's a non-reactive resin. So you can actually like have like a bottle full of something to smash and there'd be liquid in there and it won't dissolve the glass.
Yeah, I remember the days in Ace, I'm sure you, when we had the beer bottles and you had to go quick water in, quick do the shot before it starts like seeping out.
The bottom falls out of the bottle and you're like,
yeah, or like the bottom would drop out. Yeah, because the glass would, or the glass would dissolve.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's working out various gags. There's no gags is what you call like when say like you're sticking somebody with a knife, you'd be like the knife gag. And so you'd have like nowadays we don't have to mess around with like retractable stuff. You just have a handle, and then when you stick them, they do it in VFX. And then when they let it go, there'll be a cut, and you'll go back to him, and we'll have like a physical rig where it's actually stuck to the guy. And it'll be like, with the thing sticking out. But we can get away with a ton with VFX now that used to have to be like a practical rig you'd have to make to do something. And now it's the VFX fills in the gaps.
So do you have like different knives? I guess, let's say like you would have like.
Correct,
right?
yes. You generally, sorry, I got some in my mouth. You'd have a knife set where you'd have just a legit, real sharp knife, because sometimes you have to stick something with it or cut something with it. So you need one that's a real knife that's pointy and sharp to do knife things with. And then 99% of the other time, it's going to be the same thing, but grind the edge off. So what I do is I just take it to a bench grinder and I just grind it so it's flat. And then you run that by Stunts, and Stunts will take the knife and confirm that it is, or an AD if there's no stunts. Like I would hand it to Juan. And if Drago's there doing stunts, I would have Drago in on it too and show everyone that this knife is not sharp anymore. It still is pointy, so we have to be careful, but it is no longer sharp. And you demonstrate on your arm. You just then have to be, then the stunts will take over from there.
There it is.
Yeah, like that. See,
This is a fake one. And you can see it's fake.
Visual storytelling right there.
Yeah.
Exactly, you could do that. And then you would have another one where you'd have the same thing that's just the handle, or maybe like part of the blade is there, but
I'm not cutting it off.
that you would then use for like a VFX gag where you're sticking somebody with it.
Right. Go on, and then what?
Oh, for example, like on Boone that we did earlier this year, we had to stab a dummy. And so I had the very sharp, very pointy one that we stabbed the dummy with up close for the tight shot, and it went right through it, no problem. And then we also just had a handle for doing a wider shot of the stab.
Gotcha. Great. Master, what was that sword from?
This is from my last job. It was a historical series that I had to create so many gladiators fight and stuff. So this is one of the daggers from set that the prop guy gifted to me on my birthday. So we had to fight with these fake swords and daggers and stuff like that to just be safe, So this is one of those.
So Roman gladius.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I know it's obvious to folks and to people who are watching this, but talk a little bit about how a stunt coordinator is involved with safety on the set.
So obviously the stunt coordinators makes the all the action scenes, fights, and all the aggressive part of the movie, show, or whatever it is happening is on the stunt coordinator. He or she is the responsible to create, to manage, to handle, and bring the professional stunt performers to do the sequence. Or, for example, I was working on this series and I had to train the actors to fight with the performers. So this is the safety of the set, the safety of the whole cast and crew is on the stunt coordinator, to just to follow the first basic thing as having a safety meeting before every scenes that happens, like beginning of every day. Just be just like communicate with the medic department and with the directory department as well. So it's all about like making sure that everyone knows about what's going to happen on set. The place that the medic or everybody else going to be stay on a set is really important. So it's all the thing that came to, it was on top of my head, is just being like making sure that everyone knows what's going to happen on set. If there is any explosion, if there is any aggressive driving, if there is any anything unusual going to happen, it's if we have the stunt coordinator on set, he or she needs to make sure that everyone aware of what's going to happen on set.
Okay, you said that too. In fact, it's not just the performers are aware of, but you're saying like the crew's aware of, the AD department's aware of, that everybody who's on that set is aware of what's physically going to happen and what's estimated to happen in the way the sequence has been designed, right?
Yes, that's we call it safety meeting before every, like beginning of the every day, before every action scenes that are going to happen. We have the safety meeting. The stunt coordinators explains what's going to happen, what's the equipment, what's the weapon, like we show that if this weapon is fake, usually we're not using the real one. So we're showing it, we show the movements, like we're having like a rehearsals, and yeah, this is how we do it.
That's fantastic. And I have a question, but I think it actually would fall into your world, Ace. Talk a little bit how the first AD is involved with safety on the set.
It's a great question. I listened to all the explanation that Masha was saying is so true, because like I was actually just breaking a film down for a possible project that's hoping to come here next year, and it was going through, and from the earliest stage of when we break a film down, or any department head breaks a film down, it's identifying all of those elements that could have some potential danger, whether it is a stunt or it is a breakaway gag, or even if it's a scuffle or a fight scene. We're going to itemize the list and say, well, here's all the elements that we have that are concerning. And then as department heads, and in conjunction with stunts and with props or with special effects, hey, these are the elements of what are we going to do? How is this going to happen? Stunts might pre-choreograph with a pre-visualization a fight sequence or an action sequence. And then we're able to say, okay, so this is what we're expecting to have happen. Like exactly like you said, we'll have a safety meeting. Okay, so everyone come in, listen to what we're going to say. We're going to do it here to here, and this is what's going to happen. These are the safe zones, and these are the bad zones. And when we call action, we're going to blow the car up. Well, once we call cut, only these people go in first to make sure everyone's safe. Then everybody else can come in and continue their job. It's kind of the mass communication. There's no such thing as too much communication. And the more detailed in the evolution and the steps that you have available that you know of, helps everyone know what's going to happen and when, who should be involved and be going into the danger zone at what time. And also, the one thing that we haven't really talked about was working with the cast as well. And something that I try to do, and I'm sure you do, Juan, when we're dealing with both sides of it. We're trying to work with and protect the crew, but we're also trying to work with and protect the cast, who the director is predominantly more focused with. It's also kind of going to every single cast member and saying, okay, what experience do you have with this specific situation or this specific stunt or gag? And how do you feel like if we're going to show and tell them, we're going to say, this is what's going to happen, this is how it's going to happen, this is what's expected to happen. Kind of like what Blake said, and I did my short film, I did the same thing, a breakaway glass, the actress hits it on the counter. And we only had like 4 of them as well. And it was like, you roll on the first one and you hope to God you get the shot because you only have a couple more takes. And you never really know because it's not going to react the same way. It's kind of like with weapons on set. Sometimes you have to have a rubber gun. Well, a rubber gun has a different weight balance than a real metal gun. And, are they going to hold it the same way? Or are they going to react the same way? If you're doing VFX and special effects gunfire, are they going to show that the guns got kickback or not? It's just discussing with the actor what their experience is and what they're capable of, and then doing a rehearsal or a practice run with them and saying, okay, so this is what it's going to feel like, this is what it's going to look like before. And the more you plan, it's that common rule of prior planning prevents piss poor performance. The more you discuss it, the more you talk about it, the more you ask questions. And our jobs as the ADs is to continually ask everyone else. Stunts, what do you know? What do I need to know? Props, what do you know? What do I need to know? Special effects, what do you know? What do I need to know? And then we collectively take all of that knowledge and try to make sure everyone gets it, if that makes any logical sense.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's a component that a lot of people don't understand, having done the gig, that the AD now then communicates with the technicians, right? And by the technicians, I mean the craftsmen, the camera department, because like they're gonna want certain things, and then you've got to figure out how you explain a little bit more what you meant by safe zone. I mean, it's obvious, but I think you should explain the
Sure.
safe zone and the bad zone.
And it's also something, you said camera department, which is a good one to know. So a lot of times we want to be able to share information as early as possible with every department. So early production meetings before we ever step on set, we want to say, we're going to do X, Y, or Z in this scene on this day, tentatively scheduled, and with these actors. So whether it be, an explosion or, a blood gun or guacamole gun, whatever you're going to call it, or it's actually blanks or it's squibs or whatever it might be, certain departments, like for example, camera, want to know so they can prepare and have the protective equipment and gear they need for the camera gear and for themselves. And you don't want to spring a stunt or a gag that involves anything that can potentially be dangerous on anyone, because you're not prepared for it physically or with equipment or anything. Like you just can't make those. Are a lot of things happen on the fly, especially on an indie film set where decisions happen and things change like on a moment's notice. But the ones that can never happen in change modes are things that are stunts or involve an element of danger where people need to be prepared for it, communicated with, rehearsed, and practiced before you actually execute it professionally. Something else that Masa said was sometimes you're taking those performers and you're rehearsing and practicing and training before you do something so that everyone looks good on camera. Well, you're also practicing and training so they're safe while on camera. What is the choreography in a fight sequence, or what is the precision choreography in a driving sequence? I remember one of the first things I did when I moved to Chicago was I worked on an old TV show called Sirens. And, the guy who trained me as an AD brought me on as a second unit day. And literally all we had to do that day was ambulance goes this way, ambulance goes this way. Company move, ambulance goes this way. It was like the ambulance driving, right? However, what you don't think about is every single car that the ambulance swerves through is a stunt performer in a car who has choreographed that movement. And they know, okay, the ambulance is going to pass me, and then he's going to cut so-and-so off, then he's going to go past them, he's going to cut them off. And they know the order, so everyone knows what to expect. You don't want anything to be a surprise. Surprises are when accidents happen. Rushing is when accidents happen. So yeah, as you communicate, you ask people, what information do you need to know, or can you give us in regards to this activity? and you go through every department. You'd be surprised. Sometimes the department you don't think of needs tools or resources or that heads up. It could be wardrobe who needs to know, oh, you're going to be cutting holes for a harness in my costume, or hair and makeup needs to know, oh, you're going to be, blasting them with a bunch of wind or a bunch of blood. Like we need to know, like, oh, by the way, if when you do this, you're going to need a half an hour reset time with your actor because you're going to cover them in blood. And then we all get to go, oh shit, we do, because, but the more you can ask questions, I think as an AD, ask questions. And every department, which is like very specific to their niche on the set, can give you all those answers. And so just searching out the questions is what our job is. And then once we've got the answers, giving everybody the information is the second half of our job.
That's well said. I mean, I nailed it down. It basically comes down to communication, right? With everybody of what's happening, and obviously it's the more prep you have, the better off you're going to be. The more the discussions can be had, the more that you can think of what could go wrong, right? I always describe filmmaking as a problem-solving scenario. We're always problem-solving something at different levels. But one thing that you just mentioned, which I'm interested to kind of get a sense of you guys' philosophies, also maybe some personal experience, especially in the indie world where, prep usually gets crushed. And then there's still the crushing of time on set just because you're and then you get, right, being a director, you get a director who has this genius idea, which hadn't shared it with anybody. And then he comes to you guys and goes, oh, can we do this today? Just curious, something like that. And what would your response be and what should our responses be? Whoever wants to take that on first.
I think, well, I'm going to ask Blake to answer, but I'm going to put it in a very specific way. What I see happen a lot, especially on smaller indies, is the prop department does a fantastic job of they'll accumulate all their props, they'll do their show and tell, and then without fail, in the middle of the shoot, the director goes, that's great, but do you have another phone? I don't like that phone. Can I see your other phone options?
Oh, every time.
Yeah, and it's like, where'd the communication go? It's like,
remember that 2-hour meeting we had about phones a month ago?
Right.
Yeah, that happens more often than I would like, but it tends to be like the more something is discussed, the more likely it's going to change on the day, versus where every once in a while something comes out of left field where it's like, there's no way he's going to care what kind of sandwich it is. And then on the day, they're like, well, why isn't it the roast beef sandwich? Well, nobody told me that it was supposed to be that, and I didn't think to ask.
Well, also
that happens all the time, and it's like, I fortunately haven't had it in a way that like compromised anything like safety wise. Like I haven't had to deal with that. It's always been like little. Phone is a great example of just a thing that then it's like, well, why don't you have? Where's the rest?
I love these sandwich. How many times have you had to go to the actor and be like, I'm sorry, do you have any food allergies or a food preference?
Yeah,
I did a movie where
I don't eat food.
Yeah. Well, I remember doing a movie where the director wanted me to be like the featured extra to like hand the actor like a hot dog. But the actors were like vegan. So it was like a weird, like grilled vegan hot dog. And then as soon as we shot it, they were like, well, no, I'm vegetarian. It's hot dog. What is this? This isn't like a vegetarian hot dog. We're like, no, it's a vegan hot dog. Yes, for a vegan hot dog. Do you have another hot dog? Because like a vegetarian hot dog, this is just god awful. I'm like, don't ask me. The props department, the poor prop master, she's just like, really? Mm-hmm. I've been asking you for weeks what you wanted to eat, and now you're complaining.
Food is the least fun thing to deal with, because there's always a ton of what's the word I want? It's very specific as to what you could feed people, and you have to like iron that out real early.
Right.
But it's still, you guys are right. I mean, even the food issue is an issue. Like if you don't take the time to confirm allergies or anything like that, now you're in huge trouble, right? So, and that falls upon Blake in your world then to talk with the cast and confirm.
It's depending. like depending on the show, if it's regular actors, you can just go ask them. But sometimes there's that wall there to where like they have handlers that deal with that, or you ask the AD department to take care of it because they don't really let you have, like you can't just go knock on their trailer and be like, hey, Keanu, what do you eat? Like, I mean, that's a weird, he'd probably be cool with it, but sometimes
I
there's
think you're right,
that,
yeah.
sometimes there's that layer of like, you don't have access to actors, like just like normal people. So you have to go through like the second AD or somebody or a producer. It's usually like a producer that you have to talk to that'll go ask so-and-so like what can they eat and drink, and I mean that's pretty rare, but most of the time you can I just catch them when they're not busy and say, hey, you know, what we're feeding you something in a week, what can you eat? And they'll tell you generally, or like, what do you want to eat? Because sometimes whatever is scripted they don't want to deal with, so the actor will be like, can I have this? It's like, sure, go tell
The
the
best
boss.
example that I've ever heard of was, and I hadn't heard of it in a while, but a prop master needed the actors would sit down and like crack a beer and like drink a bunch of beer, but he's like, and the actor didn't want to drink beer. Like, well, what do you want to drink? And he's like, what would he say? It was mango LaCroix. But what they do is they wrapped like a whole case of mango LaCroix cans with like a generic
beer
kind
label.
of beer label.
Yeah.
But it's like you have to know that in advance or you're not prepared. You know?
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty standard one. Is you get like the non-alcoholic like O'Doul's, and you just wrap it so they can open it if they want to, and it's a beer, but it's non-alcohol beer.
Right.
So what about you in time when you get asked something for the last minute? I mean, that's got to be really difficult.
Actually, I have a funny, not funny example, experience about something last minute that happened. Director chose the location on top of the rooftop on the old house with the huge hole on top, with not having enough like tall edge around the hole, and like we had a like wrestling fight kind of thing with the actor and the stunt performer, and the space that we were fighting, it was like so like small, and the actor and the stunt performer were like two tall guys, so they were like highly chance of them falling through like 3 stories through to that hole. So I was like, I tried to change the location, we couldn't. So the director was really loving that location, that like vision of the fight next to that hole and stuff. So I was talking with the prop department and the art department. So we designed something with ladder and wood and stuff like that on top of that hole to make that hole little tiny and not having a highly chance of those people falling from through to the hole. But it was like so stressful. The director was like, he was like, I'm not moving anything from this set. I'm not going to add anything to this set. So it was like a little difficult to try to make him happy. But like bonding with the art department and the prop department, it was like made everything to go safely, and everything was good.
Nice. Dragon, what about you in time? I'm sure that happens with like props, the last minute. Oh, can this break? Or they forgot that this needs to break.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I mean, even on Boone just recently, we had scheduled, different squib effects and some gunshots. And then, the director's like, hey, it would be really cool if we can just throw a squib in here really quick and do this like stunt really quick. So everybody was like, scrambling. And then, luckily we had everything and everybody knew that we were going to have squibs on set. But, it's that classic where, it's like, hey, this would be really great is to do this right now. And so then you got to like, well, we're not prepared. Give me like 20 minutes. I can wire this guy, let's have a little conversation, a little safety meeting, and then, roll into it. Sometimes that's fairly easy, especially if you're working on a set with, people you've already been working with and you already have a relationship with, and they can kind of help you pick up the pieces and the gaps with safety, especially AD. But a lot of times you don't have that where you're the fresh or you're the odd one out, and so then it becomes a little harder, and a lot more communication is needed in that situation.
Cool. I'm gathering a little bit from the guys, from what everybody's saying. Communication and time is all important. But it also seems like there also seems to be like a need for like a ritual when things, like a process, a constant, like just the steps. Can someone who wants to talk a little bit about from their department, like what your steps would be? What is your ritual process to guarantee that safety? You know?
Sure, I can talk about guns if you want, about the process for that. On the instances in which I've used live firearms, like by a live firearm, I mean a gun that is still a gun that could chamber and fire a projectile if you wanted to. That occasionally happens, that those are on set for multiple reasons, of which I can explain. That, like, most of the time that I've had to do that, it's been with hunting scenes, because all the movies that come to the Northwest, there's almost always some kind of hunting scene. And there just isn't a good replica of like a civilian stuff, because most of the replica weapons are military things. So it's really hard to get a good replica of like a civilian shotgun. So,
but can just for the folks there, what do you, by a replica, what do you mean? What's a replica?
oh, I mean one that is like, I have my visual aids here. Like, which one of these is the functional firearm? Can you tell? Like this is a replica airsoft gun. And this is like a military 1911, which, like, handguns, you can find replicas of almost everything. But for hunting scenes, like, they want like a long, like a deer rifle or like a bird shotgun. And there just isn't a good option for that that's easy to get a hold of. So those tend to be actual firearms. And the process for that is, it's announced in the morning at the safety meeting that we are going to have a long gun on set, of which, when it comes, we will tell you by announcing cold gun on set after it's, wait, let me back up. At the safety meeting, we announce it's going to be there. It's not there yet. When it's coming to set, it comes from the secure storage, which is either like locked in my vehicle, or if I have a truck and there will be a gun cabinet in the truck where it's locked in there, it comes from that to me to set, where I demonstrate, and we'll pretend it's a shotgun, open it up, and I will show the first AD sees it. At minimum the first AD sees it, preferably the key grip sees it, and also Stunts sees it. And that's in my world. If I want as many people as possible to verify with me that that gun is clear and safe, and the actor too. The actors aren't always into it, which I try to get them to be like, you need to know that this is clear and you need to be here for this. They don't always want to. They're like, I trust you. It's like, well, you don't. Please come and be involved with this, because you need to know, because at the end, you're the one holding it. So, or especially if it's pointed anywhere near you, you need to verify that this thing is safe. So we do that. It's made perfectly clear that the weapon is either in my hands or the actor's hands, and nobody else touches it. Unless there's like an armorer or another prop person. That's the only people who should be involved with it. If anyone who wants to see, if you're like the second camera, the second AC, and you want to also check, I'll show you, no problem, but you're not touching it. I'll show you. And then when the actor is done with it, we yell cut, I take it back. And then when we're done with it, it goes back to secure storage. It's a chain of custody issue, is that you don't want it anywhere where you didn't have eyes on it the whole time. So you know where it's been, who's had access to it. And that was like a huge problem with the Rust scenario, was that there's a broken chain of custody, is that gun was just sitting somewhere, and you could say who knows who did what to it, because the armorer didn't have it in their possession the whole time. So that's a big factor for me, is that I have to know where it is at all times. And I'm there the whole time. And if I am not there, the gun is not there. It's locked up.
The two things that I know I've experienced both recently while working with firearms on set. One, obviously, yes, there's a lot of airsoft guns that look exactly like the real thing. And one of the shows here in Chicago, I went on, and the prop master, who was also the armorer, is a police officer here in Chicago, and he was very clear with, he made sure that I came and inspected it with all the other ADs, and then all the extras who were getting these weapons, because the extras were supposed to be like the armed militia. There were special ones for just the actors, but there was like the rubber guns or some of the airsofts going to the extras. And he was also very vigilant in explaining, you don't ever put your finger on the trigger. He's like, your finger is outside the trigger, like outside of the actual, trigger housing, or it's full fist on the handle. Nothing's in the trigger. And he made, like, for a good 2.5 3 weeks, he goes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, if I see your finger on the trigger, we will take the weapon away and you will leave the set. Like, it's not a joke. You don't need to have your finger on the trigger for any reason. And these are weapons that we've all been seeing are airsoft, B, completely rubberized, like they're just rubber molds,
Totally
of weapons,
solid.
fully solid, or they are welded. Like, he has one of his long guns is actually welded shut. You can't even open the chamber. Always the flashlight down the barrel, so you can tell there's nothing in the barrel, whatever, and you can look down it. Yeah, exactly. And the other one that I've encountered a lot, especially when I have armorers who are, I don't mean to say like true armorers, but like law enforcement or military who, like, in a sense, have their own shop and definitely can do mechanical work on weaponry, is just to take the firing pin out. If you have a gun that needs to fire a blank, you have that one weapon that is fireable, that stays locked up. Like you said secure storage, kind of an understatement. For all the weapons that have firing pins, it was always like a double lockup procedure, and then all the other weapons have all the firing pins removed. And I have before in my time when I didn't trust somebody, I was like, give me the firing pins. I want to know. And I had somebody who brought me a little Ziploc bag that had all the firing pins for the weapons, and it was like, here's the firing pins for these 4 weapons. And I go, great, cool. The weapons can't even fire, which is what's always helpful. But sometimes you don't have that luxury.
You don't, yeah, that's I've done some deer rifle shows in which there's a deer rifle with a bolt action deer rifle. And it's one that I'm very familiar with. So I just got 2 bolts, and I had one bolt with the pin still in it, with the striker still inside, and one that I had pulled the striker out of, because on that one, they never gave me a good answer if we were actually shooting blanks through it.
Right.
Because on the same one, we're like, hey, do you have the blanks for the shotgun? And I was like, remember the big meeting we had about not doing that? And so then I had like to overnight some blanks for like 2 days. That was the one, and that was we did run blanks through the shotgun, but we didn't through the rifle. And because I couldn't get those concrete answers, I was ready to do either. But the whole time it was the rifle with the demilled or non-functional bolts. So the bolt could still operate, but there was no striker in it, so it couldn't do anything.
I mean, I found that allows an actor to feel like they're touching a real weapon, but they know it's safe. Yeah. And at the same time, I will say this, and I'm not sure if Juan's done the same thing too. I can admit myself as an AD that if I've been on a set where, like, on the day or even the day before, or like the day prior to us seeing, and it changes, and they're like, no, we need the blanks for this. I'd be like, no, we don't, because we asked this question 3 months ago. You said no. We're standing by no. This is the way it is. And I'm sure, and I can see the chat as well. I see the questions that are coming in the chat that are very specific about situations like Rust, which has the question of, can the hammer fire? Why? The bigger question is, why was there something in the gun in the first place, and why were you using a fire pinned weapon when it was rehearsal? That's the other question.
Yeah. You have this for rehearsal.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. When you're rehearsing, you don't even need a real weapon. The other thing that I also see, though, is a question that I see that popped up here from Tyson asking about the safety class. And Blake, tell me what you guys do on your sets. I know that one thing we've done is we will take on the day prior to the scene. We'll pull the actors aside into a safe zone. And I just did this on a film in Buffalo. We took the actors over to the side and we let them fire 1 or 2 blank rounds to feel and between the how much concussion, which is usually nothing, and the sound of firing the weapon. And when we do, it's the same cadence that we call out when we actually do the shot. We call out the size, the load, the number of shots. Everyone echoes it. Everyone knows we're firing weapons. The fire department knows. The police department knows. You know, you have a fire safety officer, and all these things that sound very expensive for indie filmmakers. I promise you, this is not a place to step over dollars to pick up pennies. You just have the team you need there to keep everyone safe. But yeah, everyone should at least get the chance to feel what it feels like and test fire.
You don't want to be surprised.
Exactly.
We had because like the process that I described earlier, that was for no one's shooting anything.
Mhm.
Like doing blank fire is a whole separate animal with a whole separate routine that is very different and very time consuming. And it's, yes, you have to, you're calling out, we're firing, we have this many actors firing this many shots. And so each weapon is loaded with only that amount for that specific amount of shots. And it's all worked out ahead of time, into which that's the armorer or the prop master acting as the armorer, and the actor and the DP and the director and stunts all have to work out who's pointing what where, like where camera is. Is that like if like 90% of all gunfights in movies, it's like cameras here and you're firing at an angle over here or over here, and then the camera turns around and you see what the gunfire is doing. It's almost never like, I hate even doing this with the fake gun, but it's almost never spiking the lens with the weapon. It's almost always at an angle. And if I'm shooting at someone that's in camera, it's offset. So say it's like, you know, offset this direction. I guess it's kind of hard to show that visually.
You play with the depth. You play with depth perception.
Play with depth perception is that you never ever actually pointed at anybody. This is I do blank fire World War II reenacting, and every I get to do the safety meeting for like 100 guys at once, where I'm screaming at them, "Do not point guns at people! Don't do it!" And it's so hard to get people to just not, because you'll look over and someone's shooting at you and you can see the flashes coming right at you and you have to go chew them out. And I said, what did I tell you this morning? You do not actually, it's to the side or over or under. It's never directly at somebody, because if something goes wrong, if something fails, or there's something in the barrel, or God forbid there's a live round in there, you want to miss.
Well, the thing we've done too, when you need the gun to be more direct to lens, you know, is I refer to as the term set it and forget it, where the camera will set up, they'll put their protective shield in front of the lens,
Walk away.
which is both Luan, as well as like, you know, a lens cover, lens protector, and they will set the camera, set the shot, sometimes with like the finger gun, and then the camera department leaves and goes away. And they'll stand up to the side. They can completely remote control the camera with trigger and roll and everything else, full focus. No one has to be near the machine. That allows you to get more of the direct shot if you need something direct. Because you never want to be the one. I've been there before, where I've been a Steadicam operator with a shotgun pointed at me, and let me tell you, it was a police officer handing it to an actor, and I knew more than anyone what was in that gun, and there was nothing there, because I was like, you're pointing the thing at me, I want to know for a fact it's safe. And then that's the way everyone should be.
So you have to have everything laid out very specifically as to who's going where, who's pointing what and what direction, where camera's at, so that everyone's safe, so that nothing's actually pointed directly at anybody. And for like I just haven't gotten to do blank fire that much, because VFX has taken over, which is fine. Even though I like doing blank stuff, it's just immensely safer and less time consuming to do VFX. And some stuff you just can't do, like the John Wick stuff, like where there's all that, like you can't put a blank right next to somebody's face and shoot it. You just can't do that. So that's, I don't know if it's entirely VFX that John Wick did, but it's mostly VFX. because that's, you just can't safely do that. The stuff that they're doing in there where he's like right next to somebody firing, you can't do that safely with blanks. So you have to do a flash gag and do it in post.
Well, and let me ask you guys this, because as an AD who's become a director and was a second unit director, I actually loved the non-guns because I could shoot much faster. But with that being said, though, what I did appreciate on the show, Z Nation, when we did it, we still dealt with those guns as though they were real guns. They were still checked. They were shown when they were loaded, when they were not loaded. I'm remiss of bringing people here. And I was talking to the group earlier, or actually to Ace earlier. I'm remiss a little bit that I should have invited also Key Grip, because the Key Grip plays a big component on set, as well as these folks, on double checking any safety, any platforms being built for a stunt, or for the camera being rigged, or the guns being shot. But what I really did appreciate is the fact that I could shoot faster and I felt safer, but you still had to follow the same procedures, right? Martha, I want to throw it to you because I had the luxury and the pleasure of having a stunt coordinator when I first started, like as a PA, take me outside and show me what an actual squib does and how it spreads. And we were shooting it into foam core and showing distance and understanding all these things. How do you communicate with actors who have not been shooting guns a lot or in that action stuff a lot, to get them in a place where they're comfortable and they feel safe? So therefore, when they feel safe, like Ace said earlier, they can then do their job, which is to act.
So first, it depends on if you have time to like rehearse or train the actor with the expert. Like sometimes we have expert of gun at set beside the stunt coordinator. So me as a stunt coordinator, I'm not really professional working with guns. So I prefer to have someone that has a big experience, or like an ex-military, or someone that has certified of doing gun kind of stuff. Usually we have like explaining how it works, how we should hold it on hands, how we should walk with the guns. As Blake was saying, we are not pointing at the person. We are always like pointing like some other targets, not at the person, not at the live human or animals or something like that. And then train, but making sure that the gun is first, it's safe, lock, or usually we're not going with the real gun. We go with the fake or prop, like the guns that it's just for the movies. But from as a person that comes from different country and other side of the world, all the things that we are talking about, the safeties, still they are not following in the other countries. I was just working in Iran, and so many things happens at set just because of not having the right equipment, not having a proper gun for the gun shoot, and they are using the real guns still at set. So, I mean, as a person that comes from that side of the world, I prefer to just watch back. I'm not, as I said, I'm not a expert person about the gun and stuff. I prefer to step back and have someone that has experience, big time experience of using guns and stuff like that, so I can step back, watch, and learn. So I think I'm not in the good position of talking about these things.
Well, then maybe let's not talk about guns. There's also the safety with, let's say it's a knife fight, right?
Yeah.
And they never had, how many actors can raise their hands that I've actually been in a knife fight? I know how to hold a knife, that communication with them and trying to, and I guess it's finding out what their capabilities are, and then getting back to the director and and the AD team and saying, okay, this is what they're capable of doing. Especially I'm talking about the indie films where you have actors who are not trying to do these action stuff and everybody's trying to do their, you know, their micro budget version of Marvel Comics, right?
Mm-hmm. For all those like having actors involved to the action scene, we always have training session or rehearsal or using doubles if the actor cannot do all those parts. For horse riding, we always have doubles, or we're taking the actor or actress to the places that we can train him or her, be comfortable on horse, or if we are doing something more more aggressive, like more faster with more action in it, we always use the double. But at some point, if the director wants to see exactly the actor is going to do, we prefer to have the actor for a day, or if it's a small thing, we prefer to have like a few hours, just train with her or him and show him how to move.
Have you ever been on a shoot, just to go a little further, on a shoot where the director, you know, us directors ask for crazy things sometimes, that the actor's just not capable of doing? Who do you go tell that? Do you tell that to the director? Do you talk to the AD? Who do you talk to about saying that actor cannot do that? We need to have a double for them. And they're going to say, we don't have a double in the budget.
It just happened about the horse riding. The actor was only sat on a horse once, like years ago. And the director was like, yeah, it's just sitting on a horse and the horse gonna walk from this point, from point A to the point B, and it's nothing gonna happen. And I'm like, either it should be a horse trainer holding the horse, walking with the horse, and you can just have the actor just like an upper body of the actors and like only a head of the horse walking, passing through, not seeing that horse trainer grabbing the horse and just walking with the horse, or use the double. I don't care. You want to see the like the actor. If you're giving me the time to train the actor to make sure that he's going to be safe, okay, let's just train and let's just work on it. But if not, the only like option that you have, just see like a half frame of the actor and the horse and walking.
But who do you tell that to? Do you tell that to the director? Do you tell that to...
No, directed to the director.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Ace, has it ever been dropped on your lap though to deliver that great news that your actor's not capable of handling a stunt?
Well, I want to just say that in United States, work is totally different than working in other countries. So I have been lucky enough to work in different countries with different productions, different like different style of work. So here, everything is, as I said, safe. All the departments listen to each other, communicate to each other, try to explain everything. We have safety meetings. In some countries, we don't have. Explosion happens, nobody knows. And the director says, I want to see the real reaction. So there is some countries, they work that way. And being in that position, being there, you cannot go to the first AD because the first AD just denies and ignores you. You have to go to the director or the producer. They don't have risk assessment. They do have risk assessment, but they're not following the risk assessment. So it's just in some, I mean, as I said here, everything is like great. They try to manage everything in the best way possible, but in some countries, not. They just not.
I mean, we've had some foreign productions that have come to Chicago to shoot, and they brought like the work ethic they had to Chicago. Where we're like, well, you can't really work that way here in the United States. And they're like, what do you mean? Yeah, why not? We're like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Well, yeah, here is way safer than other countries. I mean, we had like a big battle. The soldiers were like handing them fire, standing right like half-meter from each other, and the fire on each soldier's hand, walking to each other with the flammable clothes. And I was talking to the first AD, hey, do you want to make a little distance between them at least? They were like, nobody cares. We have been shooting that way forever. Nothing happened. And I'm like, accident happens once. Like,
All it takes is one accident. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I was always like wishing to have some kind of education around the world. Not only, I mean, we are working as safe as possible. We are always making sure that what we have at set, what we are going to do, all the department, head of all the departments, always like having meeting. I was working here in this, in a state, and after every day of the shoot, all the head of all the departments were sitting and having meeting and going through to the day and what we are going to do the next day. But I wish we could like have this kind of conversation and education little bigger, like not only in the state, not only with this language, you know. And yeah, it's just,
Well, the sad thing is that we know we do it and we have the conversations because there has been the high profile accidents.
Mhm.
Because like we fight so vigilantly here in this country because there has been accidents. We you know, interestingly enough, the world does still look at the United States as kind of like the center of the film universe. Obviously, there's some great films that come from all over the world. You know, I even heard there's a Haitian film that might be the second Haitian film ever not eligible for the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language, which is fantastic to hear that our borders and eyes are opening to films from all over the world. The harder part is when I saw some of the footage from that Haitian film, and I was like, there's an entire like building burning in the background of this movie. Like, you have to think like, did they just burn the building then? I'm like, oh my god, like you didn't
I
know
want to
that,
show
like,
you the perfect example of burning in.
it's
Yes.
and to think like, yeah, some things get really frightening that like safety protocols go out the window and like, I mean, sure, we're all very hyper vigilant at the moment because of what happened on the set of Rust. We're all very familiar with who Sarah Jones is. You know, we've heard the stories. Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, amazing. See, I in fact I told Juan this on our call we talked last week. I did an indie film. It was before I was in the director's guild. I did an indie film about 8-9 years ago in Upper Michigan, in the Lower Peninsula, but Northern Michigan, in the city of Charlevoix, Michigan. We burned a house down, and the county of Charlevoix would not let us burn the barn down because it had been a dry winter. But the city of Charlevoix let us burn a house down because it was going to be demolished anyway for a reconstruction, and the fire department was able to use it as a training exercise. So the historical department went in and took out all their facades that they wanted to take out, and they left one room, and our department went in and dressed one room, and we got to like shoot a scene inside the room with like a Molotov cocktail coming in the room, and we actually had our DP with the camera and like firemen holding their belts, and as soon as the room lit up with smoke, they pulled the guys out and left the camera sitting in the room. Room had to smoke out. We got the camera. We checked the footage. It was amazing. But then at the end, we were like, "Hey, did we get everything we needed inside? Are we good? We got everything outside." I was like, "Okay." And it was a weird moment, and one of the proudest moments to be able to turn to the fire chief and be like, "Chief, pull your men out. Pull the fire bins out. We're gonna light it up for real." He did his thing. He came back to me and he said, "Okay, Ace, we're ready when you are." And I looked at the director and he's like, "Let's do this. Roll sound." There was like 5 cameras start rolling, and we're like, "Light it up, chief." And I gave permission to burn a house down. And we did it by the numbers and by the book and very safe. And it was methodical of like, step by step by step to be sure we're safe. Not just, I've heard of hey, we're going to blow a car up. I need like 3 cans of gasoline. And I think that almost slapped somebody in the face when I heard that. Like people think, oh yeah, you can do this, no problem. It's like, no, for the love of God, please don't do that. I think the thing you've asked a lot about indies, Juan, and I was blessed to come up doing a lot of indies, and some indies that had some amazing stunts. Like I said, burning a house down. But along the way, if you don't know, and you can't necessarily hire for the entire run of show a stunt coordinator like Masha or like someone like Blake, at least call and consult with them and see if you can bring them on for one day for that specific element, so that you have a professional who knows what is going on, what to expect, what to plan for, so you're not flying blind. You know, sure, we all do projects where we're completely under budget, we're understaffed and everything else, but for that one specific thing you really want to do that you know is above your ability, bring a professional in, consult with them, ask questions, you know, and do it safely and do it right. It's not worth it, because if something goes wrong, you know, if somebody gets hurt, it's not worth it. There's no matter of, but we're making a movie that will ever justify someone ever getting hurt. Never. And I think we all agree with that on this call.
Totally. And I think now that we're talking about fires and things blowing up, and Dragon goes right into your world, you know, talk a little bit about that. And in particular, I'd be interested, I mean, obviously talk about explosions and your procedures there when dealing with explosions, but also I think would be very interesting in people understanding how you communicate with actors when you're doing a squib on them and they've never had a squib before, you know, put on them, right?
Right. Yeah, that happens a lot. I mean, the majority of the time I'm putting it on actors, and then it seems like a small amount of the time it's putting it on stunt performers, you know, just because of whatever's going on. You know, mostly around here we have like nothing but independents. So, you know, they try to use and utilize the actors and actresses as much as possible. So, you know, usually I pick a time in the morning before or the day before if we're going to be like shooting straight up first thing in the morning, and just walk through with the actors about, you know, where it's going to be placed, what it's going to feel like, what it's going to sound like, you know, what the safety protocols are if they don't feel safe. You know, at any moment they could sit there and go, hey, can you talk this through with me again? And I'm not going to sit there and go, okay, you know, it's like, yes, please, you know, I'm gonna totally walk this through with you and everybody else that has a question at this moment. And that's what I really love. Somebody said,
can you explain what a squib is? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Squib is a small pyrotechnic device. It's usually looks like a little pill or a round disc, and it's usually like a plastique or some sort of explosive that you can put in and around props and set dressing and make them explode. Like you have, you know, like a shoot up, and you can drill them into the walls and make, you know, the drywall and the wood spark out and splinter. And then we have special ones that just go on actors themselves and performers. And those ones, it's just like a little small disc, like a little washer, or more like a coin. And you use a backing plate so that the explosion shapes outward instead of going to the performer. So it's always going away from camera. And because of that, you have to have very clear conversations and safety protocols with your camera department and anybody who's standing around set camera. You have to make sure that they know, you know, if the camera's too close, that they're gonna have to put a clear filter on to protect the lenses, because blood and sometimes debris of the, you know, leather or whatever the costuming is that you're gonna be doing the squib on the actor is going to probably hit in that direction. Usually we put up shields, or we just do a walkway if it's a really, you know, big close up. What was the other question? Sorry.
Well, no, I'm going to go to this one first. Can you talk a little bit about this? Because I think it's important for people to understand, like, so when it's a squid, I think the same true will fall in when it's a blank, about the cone, right? How it spreads as it comes out, right? So people think, oh, I'm like, oh, I'm far enough away, but debris could still possibly continue beyond a distance that you think might be safe.
Yeah, it does. It's a shaped charge in essence. It's kind of like, gosh, I wish I would have had one. It's like a little mini brass cup that it's like a flange, and then that little explosive sits inside of it, and so usually it'll be like on a person, and it's going to blow out this way, out that way in a radial area. So you're going to have all this debris fanning out towards camera, other actors, crew members, whoever's in and around the camera or around that area of the squib going off. Another thing too is like when I'm talking to the actors and the performers, make sure you're not crossing your arm or some sort of appendage anywhere around the squib. The main thing that a lot of people forget when, we'll put a squib on an arm, it's a hot day, they'll be like sitting there wiping themselves. So it's like, you got to sit there and camp next to them the whole time and grab their arm and be like, remember, you're hot. You're totally hot. So do not move, do not cross your arms. That's an explosive device. So, it puts out a good plasma trail, like 6 to 8 inches. So anything within that 6 to 8 inch area is like the dead zone. You don't want to be anywhere near that. And then from there, you still got debris coming out. You got chunks of the blood, what you're going to be using, dust sometimes they want to use, and then you also have the costuming. Occasionally, I've had put squibs on like weaponry, a gun or a sword or something that's supposed to, reflect off and then hits the actor. So now you also have that danger of a possible piece of whatever weaponry that you're now putting that squib on could also be shooting out. So it's just following those safety protocols and making sure everybody's clearly aware of everything that's going on.
And the first question actually was that, what is kind of like the way Blake explained how he handles, let's say with the gun scenario, what is there a protocol that you do with the squib, when you go hot? I know all the steps, but I'm wondering if you can kind of explain that to the folks here.
Yeah, usually we'll set up all the blood bags, first thing in the morning, because that's the hardest thing to do. Blood pack is just, could be anywhere from like a Ziploc to a pre-fabbed blood bag, or old school using a condom with some fake blood in it. Usually we prep that either the morning of or the day before. And then on the day of, that's the hardest part to get done. And then what we'll do is walk through with the actor or actress or the performers of exactly where it's going to be placed before we even bring it on set, just like a gun. We have that conversation with them where it's like, this is where it's going to be placed. This is what your action is. Let's have a walkthrough with the director and everybody. Okay, now you know what your movements are. This is what you can and can't do when it's actually on you. Make sure that you do and do not do those things. And then when everybody has a clear idea of what's going to be happening, especially the actor or actress, and sometimes you can also tell that their eyes kind of just get glassy or glazed over, and you realize they really didn't catch a lot of what you said because of anxiety or other people watching. So a lot of times I will take that person, it's just a matter of having that awareness of the situation, take that person aside and like, hey, let's have a conversation over here, and then walk through them again. And then it's like, when I feel confident in their eyes that they know exactly what they want, I'm sorry, not what they want, but the order and everything that's going to happen, then I usually, if I have an assistant, the assistant brings my squib kit on set, and then we start wiring. And even while we're wiring them and putting everything on, we're constantly talking to them. We're making sure, because you've got wardrobe checks, you've got makeup that'll want to come up and do touch-ups and stuff, and it's just like you just got to constantly be making sure that you're putting this on the person, but you're also have to have that 180 360 degree awareness that, oh, somebody's coming up, hey, turn this way while you're talking to them, or go around to this side. It's just a matter of situational awareness.
Gotcha. The thing that you guys all, and I keep bringing it back to the indie world because a lot of our folks here do a lot of small projects on their own, and that's why I keep discussing that. And Ace, I really appreciate what you said. If you want to do something, talk to someone who has the experience and knowledge. And I say this to everybody who's watching it, who's making, just because you watch this panel does not mean you have that experience and knowledge. Now you know people that have and have pointed out things to you that you need to be aware of. But I think the biggest part here is knowing that you have to make time to prep, make time to to walk through all this, get your research done, and get somebody on there to really advise you. Besides those things, it's so funny, this conversation, you guys like answer like all the questions as we've been talking. I keep looking, I'm like, well, don't have to ask that one, don't have to ask that one. But, which is great. But I think there's also the importance of people understanding that when it comes to safety, Ace, and I think you had said that to me on the phone, if someone's concerned about safety, they need to bring it up.
Yes.
You want to elaborate a little bit on that?
So it's very, I think especially with all the situations that come up, it's very highly publicized or at least usually known. The first AD is usually like that last line of safety defense on a set that we're kind of empowered to say stop to the entire show. And like, we're going to stop and wait a second. But in fact, everyone should be able to come up and come to the first assistant director or to the department head and voice concern and say, hey, look, you know, I have a question or a concern. A perfect example to put it in an easier term is if you see a light stand and it's blowing in the wind and about to tip over, you're going to tell that department that stand is going to fall over. You know, if you know, I'm not sure if that's rigged up right and it might come down. You're going to mention something to the key grip or to the gaffer and say, hey guys, I'm worried about this over here. Well, this is the same thing, but now we're talking about someone's life or, you know, limbs or, you know, personal safety of like, hey, I'm not sure this is, you know, the best course of action of what let's run through it one more time to rehearse. Let's talk it out. Let's figure it out. And the good, you know, the smart play that I try to do, and I'm sure Juan does, and I think all department heads, like all of us have been speaking, is we try, when we get given a film for the first time, is what elements do we notice that are a concern? And then when we come collectively together for the first time, it's let's bring all those concerns up as you go scene by scene and go, okay, so stunts, what do you say? Props, what do you say? Effects, what do you say? I found these, what do you guys see? And sometimes departments catch stuff that each other doesn't catch, and that's important. And communicating is important. But just taking that moment to communicate and to not be afraid to say, okay, and I know I do this on your side. I know Juan, I'm sure you do on yours. It's like, okay, guys, we're going to do this. We're going to go live. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? Speak now, you know, say something. And, you know, you have to be, and at the same time, if you're not the person who is that person saying, are we ready to go? And you see something, you have to be willing to step up and say, I'm worried about something. Can I hear one more time what's going on? Or can I see that done? You know, whatever it is. And like I said, like you might not be the person in that initial nucleus that looks at the weapon. But if I've had other crew members that go, is it possible for me to also see the gun? I'm going to be nearby. Yeah, of course. We're going to show it to you. You know what I'm saying? Like we're going to light the barrel up. We're going to show you what's going on because we want everyone to feel protected. You know, on one quick side note, it's funny when we talked about like if you ask actors if they've done stunts before and are prepared for something. I thought of one funny thing, and this is just a funny side note, and we never think of this. But it's something that you kind of all should is like the number one question that I have to go to an actor and ask on a regular basis on every film is, do you know how to drive a car? You would be surprised how many actors, especially from New York and some from LA, they don't have a driver's license. They cannot drive a stick shift or a motorcycle. And you inevitably have to turn the reins over. And I've had to go to the stunt coordinator and be like, can we get the stunt double for so-and-so because this person doesn't know how to actually drive a car.
Yeah,
And
I have been doubling the actress that she haven't had a driver license, only just normal driving.
Yeah. And it's not even always stunt like precision driving. Sometimes just operating a motor vehicle. They just are like, and I remember doing a show and we had to have an actress drive a car. I was like, so wait, she doesn't have a license? And I was like, guys, are we okay with this? Like, are really? Like, she's driving 8 feet. I can do 8 feet. But if it's like you're going to go around the block, then I want to make sure you have a driver's license. And we've had actors that have had to go get their license at the DMV so they could do it. But it's funny that sometimes the littlest thing, and we take driving for granted sometimes when you have a car, have a license, all that, we take it for granted that the men and women who come to be in front of the camera might not, because they might not live in a location that they need a car. You know, a lot of actors come from New York and they just don't have licenses. So
There's
So
a-
they're
there's a
weird
great
about
question.
it.
Yeah. Trust me, it's happened to more than several times here where the actor didn't know how to drive and we had, so it's a great question here. And I open it up to the entire panel. There's several good questions, but this one I want to start with. Okay, what can a crew member do if they feel like they are not being listened to about safety concerns? That the chain of command, the main person, is not addressing theirs or others' concerns.
My point, and I kind of, I also teach a PA training class, and I try to, one of the points I emphasize is you can understand your chain of command, like you can always go to the person above you. So like if you happen to be the third grip, you can go to your best boy. Or you can go to your department head. At the same time, I think, and I think anybody can kind of correct me if they don't feel this way, is that if you go to your, like if you're on the set, if you're in zone B, if you're just off the set, and you go to your department head and they don't do anything, you can go to the AD department, who is usually the nucleus on set, or the second AD, be like, hey, we have a problem and I want to voice it. And if they don't do anything, you can always go to the producers, in some cases the director as well. And if you're constantly getting a lot of the brush off on something that you truly feel is unsafe, quit, walk away. I mean, I hate to be the person to say that that's your last line of defense, but if you're not being taken seriously when you're voicing a concern, and you've gone all the way to the producers, and you're like, listen here, ladies and gentlemen, there's a concern and no one's listening to me, and I don't feel safe, and I can't stand this production anymore. And I've known people that have said that. And if it doesn't instantaneously change people's mindsets to say, okay, if they're willing to put their job on the line, there's a real concern. And if they don't care, then maybe you shouldn't be working with those filmmakers. That's just my personal opinion. But
Anybody else?
It's very well put.
Anybody? Brett? Blake?
That was well said. I haven't experienced that, so I haven't given it a ton of thought, fortunately, because I've felt pretty safe on every job I've worked on.
What about you?
I don't like ladders.
Who?
Martha?
I would definitely walk away if I cannot force them to listen to me. But it happened to me lately, and I paused the set, and I was asking for the medic to. It was not a high fall, but it was a like 2-story high fall, and my performer were about to fall, and I was asking for the medic team to be close by, but I wasn't seeing the medic, and they were like, the director was like, okay, we are shooting everything, everyone set. And I'm like, no. I stood up right in front of the camera. I'm like, no one going to do anything. Where's the medic? Where's my medic? So I brought up the medic right close to the set, and then we start shooting. But if I'm a performer, or if I'm not in the position that people are going to listen to me, or for any reason they're not hearing me, I would walk away, definitely. I mean, they say the stunt people are the bravest people around. So why you are walking away? I'm like, no, I'm human as well. I'm scared of like real fire, real explosion.
oh yeah,
all those things.
well, something Mustard said also, something I've done and I've learned, and I learned it from a cinematographer who taught me this trick. If you're standing in front of the camera, they can want all they want. They're not going to roll it if you're standing in front of the camera. It's like, I'm going to stand right here until I know it's safe, and they'll yell. And the moment that you react to what they're yelling about, they're you're waiting on, and I've also had cinematographers like, Ace, we're ready to shoot, get out of the way. And I'm like, we're not ready. Someone's still working. And they're like, oh, I didn't see that. It's like, yeah. Do you think I'm not stupid? Like, I'm not going to stand here when we're rolling. Like, yeah, it's standing in front of the lens, like she said, goes a long way.
That's a good trick.
That's a good one. I never thought about that. That's a great one. Just stand in front of the lens and slows them down. Okay.
Yeah.
Then nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know, and just to bring a personal story in, tradition of you need to stand up and speak out. And it's simple. And again, it's in the indie world, seems like it's the worst because it's always they're trying to save money. And I remember when I first started firsting, I was doing a movie in LA, and they wanted to add a bit where basically the actors' feet were going to come out from underneath them and they were going to come down. And I go, okay, great. You guys want to add that bit? Wasn't talked about in the production meeting, but then I want a stunt coordinator. And that was the first. I want a stunt coordinator that day. They're, no, we'll just bring some pads. I'm like, no, you either bring a stunt coordinator or, and I looked at the producer, or you could be the first AD for that day, but I won't be here. And you let me know. And I went home that night, and the next morning I got a call, okay, the coordinator's coming in, will you show up? Oh yeah, okay, I'll be there, don't worry. You do, you have to step up, you have to just appoint, and you know what? At the end of the day, the rest of the people who are looking at safety as a concern are going to back you up when they know it's a concern. And you have to rely on other people's expertise and being able to say, I don't know everything. You know, I'm going to rely on that department head to tell me, okay, are we in a good place? You know, or question and ask them those questions. You know, there's two more questions. There's two more things that I want to touch upon that's in the chat. And like this one goes straight to you. Is there ever a good reason to have a live round on set?
No, never, ever. No.
That's an easy question to answer.
By distinction, no, I know that, and Blake, correct me if I'm wrong. I know it's interesting because in certain terminology with armor and stuff, we've used the term live round as a blank round because there's never a reason to have a fireable bullet anywhere near a film set.
Oh, I should say a live cartridge.
Yes.
Because cartridge, this is a dummy one, because why tell when you can show? You can see that rubber tap in there. Because I brought all my prop stuff out, but I didn't bring any live. Oh, I caught that. Wow.
Okay.
Impressive. I didn't bring any
his own stunts.
I didn't bring any live stuff because I don't want it getting mixed with my prop stuff. That's very, very important. You got to keep that stuff separate.
Correct.
I do have live cartridges in the house, but they are not here right now because I don't want them getting mixed up with these. This would be if this had powder in it and a primer, this would be considered a cartridge. So you've got your brass, you've got your bullet, there'd be a primer in here, a live primer that makes the little explosion, that makes the big explosion, which then sends this down the barrel. Whereas a blank you could also call this live because it does something. This is a 45 blank. It's got the ends are crimped that holds the powder in, and it's got a live primer. So this little explosion makes this big explosion, and these little petals come out, and you get a flash and a bang. And also unburned powder comes out the barrel. So with an actual bullet in here, this is a pressure vessel. And as this is going down the barrel, the vast majority of that powder burns. So you've got the bullet coming out, but not a lot of powder. Whereas with a blank, most of this powder doesn't burn, it just goes out the barrel, which is why you don't want to be in front of it, is because you'll get hit with it. And that's not, that's not lethal, but it's not good. You don't want that in your eyes. I've heard stories about Civil War reenactors that use black powder pistols that had like a chain fire go off where like all the cylinders blew out and there's no bullets coming out, but you get like peppered with all this burning hot powder that gets stuck in your skin. So you don't want that. But no, there's never a reason to have a live cartridge on set ever. You get dummy rounds like this, or in an ideal world, you make your own where it's you are in charge of the entire process. So you know exactly what's in there, which is they're investigating that. Last I heard for the Russ incident is that they did like a search warrant on a supplier of where they got a bunch of dummy rounds because there's like, I guess they think that maybe that's where the live one came from. Again, this is all speculation. I don't know, but it's unconscionable to me that anybody who does props or armory would have a live cartridge anywhere near their stuff. So maybe that's an avenue of how that got on set. I don't know, but
there's been a lot of hearsay and speculations on that.
There's zero reason ever to have
correct
live cartridge ammunition on set ever.
Hey, question for you guys, because I was working hard on trying to get an armor on set, and one of the things that I ran into is that, and I was talking to Larry Zena from ISS. They're the main prop company in Los Angeles. That's where you can get your guns from. Your guns that actually fire blank, so as well as your non-gun or your air, those type of guns. But he was saying that nowadays, and I guess this is to you, Anthony, a little bit. Nowadays, unless it's a specialized gun, prop masters more and more are handling the handgun component, who are certified. Unless it's like a larger like a machine gun kind of a military gun kind of component, where they're bringing armors on set, which is one of the reasons. Is that true?
No, I mean, the few shows that I've worked on here in Chicago, we definitely still have an armor for any weapon. I mean, not for like for weapons that are technically real weapons, not for like special sci-fi weapons or anything, but like if it's a pistol or a long gun, like like for example, working on 4400 here in Chicago, the prop master, who's a police officer, he handled all the pistols and all the long guns, and they were all laid out one by one, and we went down each weapon, checking them all out, including the pistols and all the clips, and showing the clips are empty. Like, it was a long process. It takes a good 10 minutes to go through all the guns, but that's part of the process in that ritual, like you said, to do it. But no, the armor also handled the pistols. I have been on smaller productions where the prop master is de facto the armorer, and you inevitably have to empower that prop master with a lot of faith and trust. And when those weapons get used, the prop master needs to have an assistant that they can trust to handle all the other props, while the prop master becomes the armorer for that moment. And their job is not to worry about the rest of the props, but just the firearms that are being used on set, real or not.
True.
I spoke to an armorer right before this. Seconds before coming to this, I have to talk to an armorer that I'm trying to hire for a job I'm doing in Montana. I don't know why I'm pointing like Montana. Montana over there.
Montana?
For you, it's that way.
This show wants to have, and there's not even any blank fire. They don't want any live guns, but they still want an armorer just to deal with that, which is great. Awesome. I love the idea of more bodies to take care of stuff rather than just one person. Right?
Well, sometimes even to coordinate the acquisition, control, possession, and execution of a firearm prop, it's good to have somebody who qualifies as an armor. Probably somebody who also has, like in Illinois, we have our FOID cards, our firearm owner ID cards. Just so like, hey, like we know that we've done the training. I know that the union safety pass courses out of California that they include one of the classes you can take is a firearm safety class. And I mean, go take if you're concerned or you are interested in that, go take a safety class. There's nothing wrong with taking a safety class, not owning a weapon yourself or anything else, just having the training so that if when it comes up. I mean, I know as an AD, and I'm not sure if Juan does, I do a lot of random trainings on a lot of various things, just so I know what to expect when I walk on set. Like, I've taken drone classes so I can speak drone to drone pilots. I've taken, I was mentioning before we started, like that. Yeah, I've talked about going and taking stunt training classes just so I can help talk stunts to stunt performers and stunt coordinators. Knowledge is power. And in that same respect, if you can take a safety class on a firearm, great. But yeah, if you can have an armor handle your guns, do it always, because it takes a load off of the prop master, who has a lot of props.
Yeah.
Typically, if you're getting something like from ISS, if you're renting their stuff, depending on what it is, it comes with an armorer.
Yeah.
So if you're getting, like a Vickers machine gun or something, the armorer comes with it, because like NFA stuff, National Firearms Act stuff, they just send somebody who's got all the paperwork and knows how to deal with it and legally have that thing.
I'm gonna borrow, if I can get 30 seconds. So one of my best friends, she was doing reshoots for a little mob movie that was shot here in Chicago years ago, and they did a reshoot for the scene, and they needed an armor to come up to handle the Tommy gun. And apparently, there's only one armor in the world that handles the Tommy gun, and he happened to be on a different movie at the time, and so this little indie apparently had to spend a fortune to fly this armor from the set of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull back to Chicago for one day to do one pickup shot, then fly him back to that set. So yes, sometimes you being a very specifically trained firearms expert for a specific weapon can pay off very well. So there is, you could be your own department if you master certain weaponry.
Larry we tried to get Larry to be on here, but he's teaching classes right now, actually in your area. He's teaching in Chicago, but so he couldn't make it. But we did talk about the fact if anybody who's watching this is interested in learning more about getting more education, he's open to talking to folks and even telling them what ISS can offer them in educational components. So reach out to Spokane Film Project, and I have his information that I can pass on to you guys. All right, this has been great. I want to close it up with the last question, which I don't know, it always gets asked. What is the most scariest thing you've seen or done on a set? And we'll start with Drago.
I'm gonna get my AirPod. It died on me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. My AirPod died. Sorry. Say that question again.
What is the scariest thing you've seen or done on a set?
What's the scariest thing I've seen?
Or done.
Okay, I can answer both of those. The scariest thing I've seen is pyro going off. Very safe pyro that shouldn't have discharged, just went off without even being wired or anything. Luckily, it was on a day where nobody was on set. We were drilling holes in walls and stuff, and none of the wires, everything was crossed. There was nothing was wired at that time, and we had just walked out of the room and we heard a big pop and came back in, and the whole, like, that wall had a big hole in it about that big. That was probably the scariest thing. That was working with a group of special effects guys down in California, and that just stymied everybody, and it was pretty shocking. And then I guess the biggest, what was it? The biggest thing I've ever done, or the?
No, just scariest or most scariest thing you've ever seen or done on a set.
Oh, the most scariest thing I've ever done, I think, was the 52-foot yacht for season 3 that we blew up in Everett. Yeah, that was an amazing explosion, and that was to date. Well, at the time, that was my first very large scale explosion that I was a lead on, and also it was still my biggest one to date. So it was an awesome one. I loved it. I still have that big picture on my wall from it. I cherish that moment.
That's a good example. I mean, talking about time, I mean, I was second director for that, and we set up for almost 8 hours.
Yeah.
For a shot that ended up being in the episode for maybe 10 seconds top.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, but it was amazing. And then the additional pressure of all the looky-loos from the Washington government who came and watched, and they're all back there. She was just like, oh my God, you know, and the amount of cameras. But yeah, definitely. That's a good point you brought up, though, and something that, Blake, I wanted to check with you before I go to you as well. That people forget, powder is not a stable thing. It can change depending on weather and stuff, correct?
Yeah, it's more if what it's exposed to, like if it gets exposed to moisture or varying temperatures. I mean, like as far as like bullets and blanks, it's usually not that bad unless like water gets in there. But if it's stored correctly, it's pretty stable. But if it's not stored correctly or something happens to it, then I mean, it's not going to go off. It's more the opposite of, you could have a hang fire, of which there's a procedure for that. Is if it goes click and nothing happens, then you just got to wait for a minute. You count out about 30 to 60 seconds. Forget what the exact number is. You count to 30, wait for something to happen, and then you can unload it, because you don't want to like open the bolt and then the thing blows up.
Yeah. So for you, what's the most scariest thing you've seen or done on a set?
I'm really trying to think of that, because I don't have anything that stands out. I don't like heights. So I hate, like, that's a set deck problem, is they always want me to go up like some big ladder or some lift or something. And I don't like doing that. But it's like all the big like explosions and stuff, I felt really comfortable because it's always explained really well. It's called out really well. I guess one time they did okay, I did get scared one time. We were at the casino and they were testing some pyro, but they didn't tell us at main unit. And so I was still a PA and I was on like a lockup pretty close to it. And just this big bang happens right behind me. And everyone freaks out and Esther's on the walkie yelling. And it's like, what was that? Because I'm just a PA. I have no idea what's happening ever, really. Because I can barely read a call sheet at the time. And I don't know there's an explosion that day. So just a big explosion happens like right behind me. Fortunately, the horses were gone.
Yeah, it's my episode of all episodes you bring up. Yeah, there were a lot of people that were talked to that day after that occurred. Martha, what about you? Most scariest thing you ever seen or done on a set?
I think the scariest thing being a coordinator I have done. That's it. Just being worried about all my performers. Oh my God, he's going to do this. Oh my God, he's going to do that. Why I'm not going to do those things? I would be more happy and not having any stress doing by myself. But I remember a long time ago, it was on a live show. It was my first live show, and I had never put myself on fire. I'm talking about like 15 years ago. I was going to school by the time. So I made a fire drill by myself with getting help from one of my friends and talking via Facebook with 2 coordinators over here in the United States. And so I tried it on my hand and stuff, and it worked perfect. I didn't feel the heat. It was staying for like a few seconds. I was like, okay, I think it's fine. So I went right away to the live show to put myself on the full body fire. It was pretty scary. I was like, okay, should I trust myself and my team for the first time? Never happened before. I know it sounds crazy, but I haven't had anybody to teach me how to do stunts. So I taught to myself by just watching videos or just talking to people. So I think the most scariest thing that I have ever done after coordinating.
Well, you taught yourself well, and then you had a lot of people to help you along the way. Once you got here to the space, because you're amazing. As a stunt player, I've enjoyed working with you so much. Ace, what about you, sir? Scary thing you've seen or done on a set?
You know, it's such an interesting question to get asked. I know the one that kind of comes to mind, because I remember myself and our stunt team we were looking at each other like, what do you want to talk to them? No. When we did the movie Slice, there's a scene where 2 characters are supposed to like at a chase that ends in like, it was like a junkyard basically, and one character gets off his little moped and goes running, like goes parkouring away, and one of the detectives gets out and starts parkouring after him. And they flew in these like 2 like master parkour artists, and you don't ever really like do anything for I didn't know like we're like, well, what do we set up for them? In fact, they're supposed to like go up and like out this window and then like across this like slanted like aluminum roof and like down off some stuff. And the guys said, well, can we like move like the car a little bit, do this? If we dry off the top of this, it's going to be dewy late at night when we do this. And then like where the roof was like basically like an aluminum sheet, like the stunt team like, well, we're going to build like a box like, you know, a box pad basically, you know, out of 4 high cardboard boxes about 10 across by 10. And the guy's like, if you want to, I don't need that. We're like, dude, this is gonna be like, you're gonna come out that running. It's gonna be like a sheet of ice. You're gonna slide it off it. No, we'll be great. And these guys, they'll like, oh, we're gonna go, we're just gonna do a quick run through, and they would like, before you know it, in like 15 seconds, they're 50 feet off the ground on an I-beam in a building, not safety chained to anything, and you're like, okay, why am I having heart palpitations right now? And the whole stunt team's like, we don't know what it's like, we're letting them do their thing. We don't know, like, so these two artists basically told us, okay, we're gonna go from here to here to here to here to here. We're like, okay. And the coordinator is like, sure. Like I don't speak parkour. Like this is the weirdest thing for me. And the shots in the movie look, and they like came through and like flung through cars and all kinds of, it looks amazing. But it was also like, we really were all like hoping to God these two parkour artists really like could do what they're saying, because we all were like, this, they're gonna slip and fall and break something at some point. And they never did. It was kind of amazing all the work they did, but parkour is a level of stunts that I've only dealt with once, and it was like mind-numbing to watch someone go, okay, cool, and like from talking to you like for 2 seconds, and then they're 50 feet off the ground hanging off a rafter. You're like, what the hell just happened? Like we're like a spider monkey, I don't know, on acid. It was crazy. But that was the weirdest thing, was to be like trusting two people who'd only been in Illinois for like 3 hours or whatever it was, to like bounce off of parts of a building like it was nothing. And it was amazing to watch, but scary as hell to be like, okay, I hope this is gonna work, because I don't know. Yeah.
Oh my.
That-
That is, yeah, I've had the opportunity to work with some parkour. I actually did it with them in China. They were Chinese parkour, and it was just like, they would tell you, I'll need this amount, like you just said, and the next thing you look, and they're like doing it. Wait.
Yeah.
We're not ready for you. We're not set up for your safety. You know, and again, that's part of a respect for an art form, that they know what they're talking about, they know what they're doing, and you have to respect that space.
Right.
You know. Guys, I want to thank you all very much for spending the time today with us and sharing your stories. This actually went a little longer than I had thought we would, but I think it was important. And I'm hoping that, people walk away with the message that you guys have been talking about. Number one is preparation. Number two is communication, and kind of protocol and procedures. And follow those protocols and procedures. They've been set there for a reason. And like Ace said, it's a movie. We're not doing anything but a movie. There's no reason for anybody ever to get hurt. I'll close this with one story for you indie folks. When you don't have money, like you can't do explosions. And it wasn't so much that we didn't have the money on the show, but Drago and I worked on this gag on one of my episodes, because what I wanted to do, I knew was unsafe. That it was a very small room. An actor was supposed to run by as squibs were going off in the wall. And also squibs coming up from underneath the floor, right? But the point was that the room that was built, because it was supposed to be a small room, and our camera angle was only about 12 feet, maybe 15 feet in max in width. So it wasn't much distance. I couldn't hide it with the camera lens. And what we came up with was a brilliant idea, that we pre-drilled holes and used air dust blows. So it's super safe. A little bit of a sawdust coming up, and then with a little bit of sound effects, it looks like we spent millions of dollars blowing this wall away. That's what you got to do when you don't have the money, guys. You got to think of creative ways to solve the problem where it's safe and manageable with time and the money that you have.
And repeatable.
And repeatable, yes. And repeatable. Yes, don't forget that. All right, guys, thank you all very much.
Camera needs one more one.
With the camera. No, that's usually my job to say I want one more. Thank you all very much for taking the time again. Thank you for joining us. We will be posting this on our website and our YouTube channel, probably in the coming weeks after Christmas, so you can watch it and share it with your friends. Also, the reminder, if you haven't seen it, and we sent out an email, Washington Film Works this year will be going back for more money. We're going to leave the 3.5 figure and asking for $20 million from the state to help us and advise so that we can have bigger shows, and then Ace can maybe have a reason to come and visit Washington. But right now there's a petition online that you can sign up. It takes 2 minutes to sign it. Okay, if you're pleased, so please take the time. You can go to our Facebook page, it's on there. We've also sent out emails. Otherwise, everyone please have a happy, safe holiday with your loved ones. And 2022 is going to be a great year. Thank you guys. Good night.
Bye. Happy holiday.
Ciao.
Now, everybody, thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Oh, hey, Rebecca.
That was Rebecca, our president of Spokane Film Project.
I felt like you brought the kitty on just for me, so thank you.
Of course. Well,
haircut.
actually, he must have sensed you. He was like not in the room until all of a sudden at the last moment.
I admit I was checking your background for him occasionally. And
Yeah.
Blake,
I'm surprised he didn't come down sooner.
Thank you all so much. This was fantastic and so timely.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you
for
so
having
much
us
for
and putting
having
this
us.
together.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for having
Sorry.
us.
Oh,
Very
forgot to bring it up. There's that website that has all the lists of like industry standard procedures for stuff. You know what I'm talking about?
The safety
Yeah.
bulletins?
The safety
Yeah, the
bulletin?
safety bulletins place.
The
Yeah.
safety- yeah, the safety bulletins are from the same organization that I mentioned earlier, the Safety Pass training. It's from csatf.org.
Yes, that.
If you go to csatf.org,
Lower third up.
yeah, it'll pop up and it says safety bulletins, and there is a plethora in English and in Spanish for everything from working with stunts to working with drones to working with firearms, working with animals to working underwater to working with, almost everything that has ever been shot on film. They have a safety bulletin for how to do it and do it safely. And and we actually use them as ADs as our extra like notices for people. Like, by the way, we're doing this. We're using atmosphere. Oh, we're having a drone. Oh, and it's free to use. You do not have to log in. You can download them, and I recommend even on an indie, you use those so that you can practice before any bigger shows come and you get used to what they are.
What was the website?
csatf.org.
Okay. Thank you.
And Ace, do you mind typing that in the chat? So the
Yeah,
people
sure.
can get it?
Sure.
And I'll ask for you guys are out there with the indies. In the industry, it goes out with the call sheet depending on what you're using that day, and it's something you definitely should consider sharing with your crews when they're non-union crews, so people can read and be aware of how to be safe on their set.
I believe they
All
also
right.
have an app too that you can put on your phone that has all the safety bulletins accessed really easily on your phone.
Oh,
Yeah, I believe
nice.
that's come out recently too.
Yeah. And if you're an IATSE member, they've now opened up all the safety pass courses. You don't have to be an LA local in order to take them. They're all available now too.
Oh, great.
Sorry, 488.
You're completely right. It's the Directors Guild is the same way. They've actually opened up most of those. There is still some classes that you have to do in person. Like I believe if you want to be a Condor operator or a some rigging classes and stuff, you actually have to do in person still there in Burbank. But most of their classes are free to any union members, whether it be IATSE, Directors Guild, and some stunt performers, I believe. Everything from close quarters and like small spaces to process trailers, firearms, like we mentioned.
I just took
But
the
also things like
harassment
environmental.
prevention.
Yeah, harassment's one that as soon as it came up, the Directors Guild was really fast to say, please take this, and we all did. Plus, they've got their COVID class as well now, which has been mandatory for everyone to take their COVID prevention class. Yeah, I recommend it highly. In fact, they've got a great general training that also is for New York that I've been encouraged for them to use here in Chicago because it's for urban shooting environments. When you have a very dense populated urban environment, as well as working with public transportation and trains, they have a New York class that's very good for that as well. So yeah, csatf.org. Get the information. Don't be afraid to take the class on the day off. I promise it pays off in the end.
Nice.
All right. All right, guys, we'll close it before people start asking more questions.
Cheers.
Longer. Cheers, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye.